Co-occurring disorders is simply a fancy word for saying that the individual struggles with an addiction as well as a mental health condition. So for these individuals, it's essential that you provide treatment at the same time. That's where the or concurrent treatment comes in. The importance of this is rather simple, yet lost a lot of times on clinicians that don't understand the complexities or how these things are intertwined. For example, I've seen it many times where somebody begins going to treatment saying, I need to work on my trauma. Well, that's true. What they have failed to say is that they have an underlying addiction. And so what happens is as we begin to work on their trauma, their emotions increase. They're distressed more often. They struggle more often throughout their day. This is actually the reason why they started using in the first place. So as we increase their emotions and begin talking about their traumas, that intensity is up here. Well, they don't quite have the skills or ability yet to manage that. So what do? They revert quickly to the substances as a way to cope and bring that emotional intensity down. Because the reality is substances work excellent for doing that. It's why people develop addictions in the first place. So you end up in this process where you're working on the trauma, and at the same time, now you're increasing actually somebody's addiction because they're turning to that more often as the coping skill, as that was their first maladaptive coping skill to begin with, to deal with the mental health concerns that were going on for them. The converse is true as well. Many times we will start working with somebody on their addiction saying, okay, we got to get sobriety. They achieve sobriety. We're working on them maintaining sobriety and using the skills that they need and the education that they need to maintain that. At the same time, what's coming back is the emotional intensity building over time from the trauma that they experienced before. Often people may say that they're on edge all the time, that they're having dreams about their trauma, they're re-experiencing that. So as you took away their coping skills, something that allowed them not to escalate in their emotions, they don't have any skills on which to manage this increasing emotion, which then eventually pushes them to a point where they return to use, and then that only reinforces their addiction even more because they went from this high intensity emotion back quickly to something that calmed them and made them feel better immediately. There is no medical medications on the market that can have that kind of an effect on somebody. It takes time for people to develop that happiness. So essentially, you need to have a clinician that understands the complexity of those two issues together, that can work on them concurrently so that you don't exacerbate their emotions to a point where they either return to use or they white knuckle it until they return to use. The outcomes when you don't provide co-occurring treatment are very poor, and part of the problem with addiction treatment centers over time has been this exact thing. People do really well while they're in a contained environment and can't use. And then once they're on the outside of the residential treatment and having to manage the complexities and the emotions and stress of life, they return to use because they never developed the skills to do that, and they never developed their underlying understanding of the mental health condition which they struggle. Here at Momenta, we provide only co-occurring treatment. All of our clinicians are able to treat any mental health condition, and all of them have advanced training in addiction treatment.